everyone. I'm here today to read part of chapter 2. If you missed today's Zoom in our Tsunamis and Other Natural Disasters book, chapter 2 is all about earthquakes, which is why Miss Canderin put that as our objective. What are earthquakes? So I'm only going to read a few pages of the chapter. It is a little bit longer, so I'm going to split it up into 3 different days. So today we're going to read part 1. On Friday we'll read the second part, and then Monday we'll read the third part of chapter 2. So here we go. Chapter 2 is called Earthquakes. Earthquakes happen both underwater and on land. Each year, there are about 1 million earthquakes all over the world. Most earthquakes last only a few seconds. They are not dangerous. People usually don't even feel the earth moving at all. The great earthquake that caused the tsunami of 2004 lasted about 10 minutes. So what this is saying is sometimes there are earthquakes, but we can't feel them because there's such a slight little movement in Earth, which actually most of the earthquakes we can't feel. And they only last a few seconds. However, the one that Tilly Smith was in, that earthquake that caused the tsunami that she saved people from, lasted 10 minutes, which is really long for an earthquake. Earthquakes begin beneath the Earth's surface. The Earth is made up of different, and here's the picture here of what damage an earthquake could cause. The Earth is made up of different layers. The outer layer that we live on is called the crust. The crust is made up of rocks and dirt. So that is the layer that we are standing on right now. It's called the crust. In most places, the crust is about 25 miles thick under the Earth's surface. The crust is thinner under the ocean. There, it is about 6 miles thick. So if we were to dig 25 miles straight down, that is how thick our crust layer is. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 25 miles to dig straight down is really far. In most places, Miss Canderin already read that, excuse me. Our middle layer, so the layer underneath the crust, is called the mantle. The mantle is about 1,800 miles thick, so a lot longer than the crust. The mantle consists of super hot rocks. These rocks are not exactly solid, but they're not exactly liquid either. Rocks in the mantle are like a thick paste. Deeper down in the mantle, many of the rocks get so hot that they melt. This melted rock is called magma. Now we're going to be reading a little bit more about magma in our volcanoes chapter. However, some of us might know that in the mantle, it's called magma. However, when it hits our crust layer, it's called lava. So once it comes out and hits our air, it's called lava. But underneath the earth, it's called magma. Then our last part is called the core. So we have the crust that we are on, then we have the mantle, and then we have the core, which has 2 parts. There is an outer core and an inner core. The outer core is about 1,400 miles thick. It is made up of melted rocks and metal, mostly iron and nickel. The inner core is about the size of our moon. It is mostly made up of super hot metals. The temperature of the inner core can be over 6,000 degrees. Holy moly. That's hotter than anything you can ever imagine. So here we have 2 different kinds of text features. Text features are things in an informational nonfiction text that help us understand a little bit more about what we're reading. So this first one here is a diagram. A diagram is a picture that has labels pointing to each part. So this is a diagram of the layers of our Earth. So we have the crust, which is made up of rocks and dirt. That's what we stand on. The mantle, which is the second layer, is made up of very hot rocks and the melted rocks, which is the magma. We have the outer core, which is made up of melted metal and rocks. And then we have the inner core, which is super hot metals that are solid. Here I'm going to read something called a sidebar, which is a kind of text feature that's off to the side, but it gives us extra information about what we're reading. So it says, even though the inner core is very hot, there is so much pressure on it that the metals remain solid. So you would think that because it's so hot down there, the metals would melt. However, there's so much pressure that's on these, it keeps the metals solid. So we talked about this in our Zoom. I told some of the students that if you have ever dove deep into a pool, sometimes if you go down farther, your ears might start to pop and feel a little weird. That's because when you start going deeper, there's more pressure. Also, there are people called scuba divers, divers that go deep down into the ocean that look for different animals and kind of study things in our ocean. They can only go so far down into the ocean. We know the ocean is very deep, but humans can only go so far down because the farther they go down into the ocean, the more pressure is building. And our bodies can only handle so much pressure. It's like things that are pushing down. So what they're saying is in the inner core, it's extreme pressure that's pushing down, making these metals solid, even though they really should be liquid because it's so hot. That's crazy. Next, we're going to read about the plates that make up our Earth. Before I read that, Jack and Annie, our fictional characters, are talking about something that goes along with our bonus activity. And it has to do with the layers of our Earth. So Jack said, "How is the Earth like a peach?" And Annie said, "That's easy. The skin is like the crust, the fruit is like the mantle, and the pit is like the core." So those layers of the Earth. Our next is called the plate tectonic theory. Let's read about that. Scientists have found that the Earth's crust is not made up of one solid piece. It is made up of different sections. These sections come in different sizes and shapes. Scientists call the sections plates. So all of these are called plates. They have a theory about the plates called the plate tectonic theory. A theory is an explanation based on lots of research. Before I move on to the next page, here we have another kind of text feature, and we have talked about this when we read our Scholastic News articles. On the bottom of our Scholastic News articles, we would normally have a box that would give us a few words and their definition. And if you remember, it starts with a G. It's called a glossary. Awesome job. Bella, get down. Sorry, my cat is going crazy. So here, this is like a mini glossary because it only gives us about one word and what it means. So it says the word tectonic comes from a Greek word that means builder. So like our Greek and Latin root words. Let's start up here. 9 large plates and many smaller plates form the crust. Scientists describe the plates as huge platforms of rock and dirt. They fit together a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle. So if you could see, these plates all come together and fit like a puzzle. The platforms or plates actually float on top of the mantle. So if you remember from chapter 1, it said that scientists found out that the earth, or the crust, the land that we stand on, is floating. So they're saying that the layer, the crust, is floating on top of that second layer, the mantle. Scientists have concluded that the plates move. Experts believe the moving plates cause earthquakes and volcanoes. They also believe that the moving plates created some of our great mountains. So here we have a map of our world, okay, and here we have North America, and we are on the North American plate. So this whole plate makes up North America and Greenland, and here we have Alaska. So this is a really large plate that we are on. And then these are all the other plates that are named. Here's our last page. Now, one of the questions I asked our friends on our Zoom meeting today was, if you could ask Mary and Natalie, our authors, if you could ask them a question about what we're reading, what would you ask them? So we discussed about that. So that's something you can think about. The last is the movement of the plates. Okay, so we're going to read about that and how that can cause earthquakes, the earth to shake. The plates move very slowly. In fact, they move about as slowly as your fingernails grow. When moving plates meet, 3 things can happen. First, some plates slide past each other. When they slip past, they rub against each other. So here we have that first picture. So if both of my hands, one plate, another plate, what they can do is they can slide past each other, back and forth. And even just the slightest movement can cause an earthquake, the earth to shake. The second one is when the plates move away from each other, which is called rifting. So here is when the 2 plates move away from each other. The last one, plates can collide. Sometimes when this happens, one plate slides under the other. This is called subduction. And if you remember, here's the picture here. And if you remember, our Greek and Latin root word sub means below, like submarine. So one of the plates moves below the others. So if these were our plates, sometimes one plate can go below and the other can go over top. And this can also create mountains. If you see my hand starts going up like that, that can, over many, many, many years, can create mountains. So those are the 3 kinds of ways that our plates can move. These dots are where the 2 plates come together. And I was actually telling Shayna, because she asked if we have earthquakes here. Usually earthquakes happen where the 2 plates meet. And as you can see, we're not really near any of those which are called fault lines. So we might experience a very little earthquake. However, we usually won't feel it because we are really far away from those fault lines. So Shayna, that was a really great question. Awesome job. So we are going to stop here for today. Thanks you all for following along with me. Let's look at the question that you can answer and the super fun activity that you guys can do. So our first question is, what does this part of the chapter make you think about? So while Miss Candorin was reading, what were you thinking about or even wondering, like an I wonder question, in your head? So your sentence starter could be, this part of the chapter makes me think about. What does it make you think about or wonder? And then finally, our bonus activity. You can create your own earth layers model. So I have created my own earth layers model out of a paper plate. So this is just a paper plate and some markers. So around the edge, I colored that brown and I labeled it the crust. And then here I have yellow, which is the mantle, the second layer. And then here I have the outer core and then the center, the inner core. So really simple. Some other materials that you could use to make your own earth layers model. Again, you could use a paper plate like Miss Candorin. You could use crayons, markers, or colored pencils. You could either draw it on a piece of paper, just draw a circle and create the layers. You could use paint if you have paint. You could use chalk. You could use fruit, just like Jack and Annie used a peach. If you have an avocado, you can use something like that. You could use Play-Doh to create the different layers. You can even use pizza. I saw some really cool ideas on Pinterest of how you can make the layers using pizza or different kinds of food. Or you could use sprinkles too. If you have different colored sprinkles, you can create the different layers that way, just flat. You can use any other materials, not just the ones Miss Candern gave up here, but it just gets your brain thinking of some of the different things that you can use for your Earth Layers model. I can't wait to see what some of your creative minds come up with. Thank you for joining me today. See you guys next time. Bye!